From the nation's capital, Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. A weekly discussion about the federal issues most important to Nevada. And now, from Washington, D.C., here's Marilee Joyce.
And good day to you. I'm Marilee Joyce, and this is Eye on Washington, the only statewide Nevada news program produced in Washington, D.C. Every week, Eye on Washington takes you straight to Capitol Hill for a discussion with Nevada's delegation and other leaders about the federal matters that matter to you. Today's topic, still in the top 5. We're going to update you on the continuing housing crisis in Nevada and on federal efforts to help those of you in or facing foreclosure. My very special guest today is Chris Estes, the president and CEO of the National Housing Conference. NHC is a Washington, D.C. based organization that advocates for policy and legislation focusing on housing concerns, several of which are facing Nevadans today. And thanks so much for being here again.
Thanks for having me.
For the first time. I'm sorry about that. We've done a lot on housing, though. The numbers are down, but Nevada's foreclosure ranking remains way, way up. And today on Eye on Washington, we'll update you on federal housing programs aimed at helping those of you still struggling. We'll learn how my guest organization works to strengthen Nevada's and this nation's housing system. Well, nowhere has the pain of the nation's housing crisis been felt more acutely than in Nevada. While foreclosure rates plunged this fall, the state remains 5th in the nation for filings, with 1 in every 402 homes in foreclosure. Nevada ranked 1st for 62 consecutive months before finally giving up that title last March. As we entered fall, almost 70% of mortgage holders in Nevada were underwater. That's owing more than their homes were worth. According to the research group CoreLogic, Nevada remains the only state in the union whose total value of single-family homes is less than the amount owed on them. And we need to remember that the foreclosure crisis hits more than homeowners. Construction and other housing-related businesses have closed or scaled way back. Contractors and developers are wary of diving into the market. City and county coffers that rely on property taxes are collecting less and less thanks to diminished property taxes. This means many public jobs are lost. In Reno, the police force has been cut 31%. The Clark County School District has cut $500 million from the budget. Homeowners seeking to refinance often are turned away by wary banks. Consumer spending declines, production sags, leading to, here we go again, Nevada, rising unemployment. And Mr. Estes, welcome to Eye on Washington. We're going to discuss federal efforts to help the housing crisis, some from your organization, some from the Hill. We're going to get to that a little later in the show. I want to start with this, though. The continuing crisis in general, there's been a lot of talk lately about this slow economic recovery. But if you or a loved one is still in the foreclosure process or you've lost your home, that's not the best news. Talk about that a little.
Sure. I mean, obviously, any kind of economic downturn or the issue of foreclosures is most keenly felt whether you're going through it or not, or whether your neighborhood is. And I think it's an important distinction. Even if you are not going through foreclosure yourself, you can be dramatically impacted if folks in your neighborhood are, because that reduces your property values. I think the tough news you've outlined is sort of where Nevada is. There is, I think, some positive news to talk about, which is a recent analysis of the 25 worst markets in terms of trend lines. Nevada is not on that list. Right. And so there is a sense that maybe we are kind of bumping along the bottom, and in many places housing markets are getting better. I think one of the things that Nevadians can benefit from is the sense that their state was much more of a boom and bust market, and not necessarily a long-term economic decline area right. like Detroit or Cleveland are facing, where they're looking at long-term population decline and the loss of the industries that really brought their economic vibrancy. So
we did have some turnaround earlier in the fall of this year as well. Exactly. You know, I did mention that the foreclosure rate in Nevada is improved. And part of it, obviously, is what you said. And I do want to say, though, the state's year-old, we have a robo-signing law, which compels the banks, you know, to give them more paperwork. And that does slow down the pace. But the NHC would like to see some true relief. Right.
I think there's a number of things that need to happen. One of the things we've been advocating for is principal reduction, which the Federal Housing Administration has not allowed FHA or Fannie and Freddie to pursue yet. We think there are models that can work. We really try to focus on what are policies that really can work for everyone who works in the housing industry. And we think there are some really interesting models with modifying mortgages or doing principal reduction that don't harm lenders in the way that people have been concerned about, that can really lead to much more better permanent workouts that will work on a long-term basis.
Well, maybe that fits into this question. Your organization is very involved in what's called a foreclosure response, and that's kind of a comprehensive program with concrete steps to prevent foreclosures. Isn't that right?
Yeah, we, along with the local initiative Sports Corporation, NeighborWorks, and Enterprise, staff this National Foreclosure Prevention and Neighborhood Stabilization Task Force. We were really responsible for pushing Congress to pass the first sort of substantive response to foreclosure, the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. We pushed for changes to that program to make it more to function, and have really been kind of leading the dialogue with the administration and Congress on what else needs to happen to continue to respond to this.
Okay, we're about out of time for this segment. I just very quickly, what about for the person who's tried prevention strategy and they just can't avoid losing their home? What hope and help do you offer maybe the unemployed or the low-income Nevadan who's trying to secure affordable housing?
For somebody who knows they're going to lose their home to foreclosure? Well, the best thing to do for somebody is to get to a HUD-approved housing counselor in your area. This is somebody who should not be asking you money up front for help, and they can really be your guide to both helping you do a successful workout, but also to find affordable housing in your community, and they often can be the best referral resource. Great
segue, because we're going to follow up on that in our next segment. When we return, housing help for the distressed homeowner. That is next.
You're watching Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, brought to you by the National Mining Association, Caesars Entertainment, NV Energy, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, Western Lithium Corporation, the Nevada Mining Association, the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County, and Skyline Restaurant and Casino.
America's minerals have made us a nation of self-reliant dreamers, shaping our world and the endless ways we enjoy it. But red tape often forces us to import more than half the minerals we depend on. Minerals we already have. We don't import our dreams. Shouldn't that go for our minerals too? The National Mining Association. Learn more at nma.org.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No, no, no.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
Know what?
What?
Since I got adopted, I've learned a lot about these humans.
I know. I mean, check out these two. It's Flirt City over here.
Yeah, I noticed that. It looks like my human is definitely into your human.
Oh, look! I think she's getting his number.
Nice.
Your human's got some sweet moves.
Takes after his dog. Oh, look, they're doing that thing where they put their arms around each other.
She kicked up a leg. It's like in the movies.
That's awesome. Looks like we're going to be hanging out a little bit more.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of Nevada's continuing housing crisis and what's being done in Washington to help solve it. My special guest today is Estes, the president and CEO of the National Housing Conference. So what is happening on the Hill and an organization like My Guest National Housing Conference to help struggling Nevada homeowners? Well, first, for Nevada and a handful of other states, there's the Hardest Hit Fund. It helps unemployed and underemployed homeowners with financial assistance, mortgage principal reduction, speeded up short sales, and second mortgage relief. Also, we have the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, and that strengthens neighborhoods impacted by high levels of foreclosures. There's the Home Affordable Refinance Program, which allows qualifying homeowners to refinance loan with more favorable terms, even if they owe more than the home's value. And then we have just a handful of housing efforts for you that are advocated by Nevada's congressional delegation: the Fraud Enforcement and Recovery Act, the Helping Families Save Their Home Act, the Second Chance at Home Ownership Act, and the Home for Heroes Act. If you are in need of a help today, though, you can visit HUD.org or any of the Nevada delegation's member sites. You can check the housing entry on their issues page. And Mr. Estes, on an up note, there has been a ton of legislation passed or advocated or being fought for right now that is focused on helping to strengthen housing. But what I've learned from you, the NHC thinks the nation has seen a very good effort, but that there are some myriad housing concerns and a lot remains to be done.
Sure. I mean, part of the challenge was, I think, for Congress and the administration and the general public to really get their minds around how big this problem was. And so I think the Neighborhood Stabilization Program was an important start, but it really was in some ways a drop in the bucket to the challenge we were facing. We've been advocating heavily for the Project Rebuild, which is another effort that HUD and particularly Secretary Donovan has put forward, which has $15 billion being with a goal of to get $15 billion to localities to allocate to solutions that work in their communities. So there's a lot of local control. People have been testing out.
So for instance, how would that work in Nevada?
So the idea would be there would be money that would flow to Nevada towns who've been hit hard by foreclosure, and they would be able to utilize it in the solutions that really have been working well for them already. It's particularly targeted to how to bring vacant or potentially blighted property back online, either conversion to rental or rent to own. There's renovation funds. There's also down payment assistance to get home buyers into homes that are vacant to try to stabilize neighborhoods. But it has the flexibility that people can really, instead of a one-size-fits-all answer, it really is, I think, an important element that can lead to a lot of community development success.
You know, I mentioned some of the efforts by the Nevada congressional delegation. I want to mention one, Second Chance for Homeownership. That's a bill that was introduced by Nevada U.S. Congressman Joe Heck, and its goal is to help those who either went through foreclosure or a short sale to get a new 30-year loan, and if they meet requirements. It is strict, so there are requirements, but including no delinquent payments for the last 12 months. Is that a good idea, this bill? It does give you another chance.
I think the notion of getting people another chance is a good one. The challenge right now is, regardless of what Congress does in terms of providing assistance, is that it's very tough for people to get financing assistance. The credit market is very tight. And I think that there's...
So what's NHC pushing for there?
We've been pushing for, well, particularly for FHFA, Fannie and Freddie, to be looking at what is a better systemic solution to how the government is going to provide some sort of guarantee or support for lenders to re-enter the market. I think there's a lot of look that needs to happen with the implementation of the Dodd-Frank bill and what consumer protections are really valuable to prevent predatory lending, and what things need to be clarified so that lenders can re-enter the market. Because right now, private capital is just not moving into home ownership in a way that people, we can have all the intentions of moving folks back in, but if they can't get loans, it's just not going to happen regardless of even what their credit is.
We're just about out of time in this segment, but what about HARP? Where's NHC on this issue?
We've been very supportive of HARP, and I think it has done a particularly good job within the scope of what it was allowed to do. I think that, again, the key feature is to make sure that further work is done in making better coordination between the people who are servicing the loans and lenders and those who are involved in bringing homes back online. There's still more work to be done there for sure.
Okay. And when we return, how the National Housing Conference is working to help solve your housing needs. And that's right after this.
Every day, thousands of people in northern Nevada don't get enough to eat. 1 out of 5 children in northern Nevada go to bed hungry every night. But you can do something about it. Catholic Community Services of Northern Nevada has been providing help and creating hope in our community for more than 65 years. By donating food, time, or money, you can make a difference in a hungry person's life. When you make your generous donation to St. Vincent's Dining Room and St. Vincent's Food Pantry, you're helping to fight the scourge of hunger in northern Nevada. In these tough economic times, now more than ever, we need to help those less fortunate. To find out how you can donate to St. Vincent's Dining Room and St. Vincent's Food Pantry, call, click, or stop by, and together we can end hunger in northern Nevada.
Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
This girl is very pretty. It's inciting feelings of jealousy in me. We should pick on her.
I'm insecure about some things, so I think we should put some me stuff on here. Maybe even some lies, too.
Yeah. I just want to be accepted by you both. So I'm going to send this to my friends so they think I'm cool.
Kids bully for all kinds of reasons. None of them are good. Find ways to get involved at flipthescriptnow.org.
How will new energy technology make our lives better? Will geothermal, wind, and solar energy be a bigger part of our future? Yes. And soon it will all be in our backyard. Learn more at nvenergy.com.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of efforts on the Hill to help those of you still struggling with foreclosure and other housing issues that continue to plague Nevada. We've been visiting with Chris Estes, the president and CEO of the National Housing Conference. So, just what is the National Housing Conference? Since 1931, this Washington, D.C. based national advocacy organization has been dedicated to helping ensure safe, decent, and affordable housing for all Americans. NHC goals include strengthening the nation's housing finance system, preventing foreclosures and stabilizing impacted neighborhoods, coordinating housing, transportation, and energy policy, assisting low and moderate income families with their housing needs, and preserving affordable rental housing. Its website, nhc.org, offers a plethora of resources to answer any housing question, meet any housing concern any Nevadan watching or listening today might have, ranging from foreclosure news we discussed today to legislative efforts, to the special housing need of veterans, the elderly, and disabled, to mortgage rate and finance information, to rural housing, and to too much more to mention here. And Mr. Estes, here are some really unique findings I saw on your site. Just some of the headings. We have paycheck to paycheck, open house blog, foreclosure response, the gallery of affordable homes, housing and health, housing and aging population, and tons more. It really covers the full gamut of housing needs today, doesn't it?
Yes, we're really trying to be an organization that represents the broad perspective of all the stakeholders who have housing issues, and we're really trying to inform both the folks working in housing about what else is going on around the country, what is happening in Congress that they need to be paying attention to, and how to help us form better housing policy, but also for folks just wanting to find out what the resources are, where they can go to get help. The foreclosure recovery site is particularly focused on helping consumers find information that can be beneficial to them. I think we particularly want to help reframe how people think about housing, and particularly affordable housing, which often has been cast negatively from experiences that really have nothing to do with what people are building and living in today.
Although our show is about foreclosures, a lot on the stuff on your site is really geared toward ensuring folks never have to go through a foreclosure, and that's where that affordability comes in, isn't it?
Sure. I mean, we want to make sure that both rental housing and home ownership opportunities are affordable for folks. And in particular, we want to make sure that people have the opportunity to live near where jobs, goods, and services are. And so that their only opportunities to buy or rent aren't out farther away. And so we've done a lot of work about showing the benefits of linking what transportation costs are to housing costs, and how cities and towns can do a better job at economic competitiveness. You
also, I found interesting going through some of these, if we could, the paycheck to paycheck part, that allows you to see how workers in your metro area are faring against others and faring in the housing market, and that lets you guys advocate for stable housing costs in certain sectors of town, right?
Right. And so one of the strengths of NHC is that we have a research affiliate, the Center for Housing Policy, that puts out that information that you've identified. And so they have done a great job of compiling housing statistics and data to help us improve policy, as well as looking at particular issues like housing for veterans, housing for older adults, housing and transportation, which I mentioned, which can really change the way both local governments and federal government think about housing policy.
The Gallery of Affordable Homes, that was fun to go through. It showcases developments across the country that provide affordable places to call home. And not only are homes and apartments featured in the gallery, but you also invite developers or financiers of affordable housing to submit their projects for inclusion on your site. So a Nevadan who's involved in providing affordable housing, they can contact the NHC, maybe get their home or their construction or other project featured on your site. It's quite a thing to watch. You can check it out under the Gallery of Homes at that NHC.
Yeah, we really do want to feature the best work that's out there.
Because that would help Nevadans seeking housing help, because then they'd find affordable housing.
And it also helps local officials and other community people really understand what we're talking about when people are trying to build new housing that is affordable for folks at low to moderate incomes, what it really looks like, how good it is, how well it's being operated, and try to understand why it's a positive for their community.
Okay, and when we return, what my guest says is the #1 priority this nation needs to help struggling homeowners. That's right after this.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No, no, no.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
America's minerals have made us a nation of self-reliant dreamers, shaping our world and the endless ways we enjoy it. But red tape often forces us to import more than half the minerals we depend on. Minerals we already have. We don't import our dreams. Shouldn't that go for our minerals too? The National Mining Association. Learn more at nma.org.
There are a million places you'd never consider texting. So why would you do it while driving? Leave risky driving to the professionals. Stop the texts, and together we can stop the wrecks.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
And we are back with our closing segment of Eye on Washington. Mr. Estes, again, the foreclosure rates in Nevada are much improved. There's no question about that. We've gone from so many consecutive months, 62 months of #1 to only 5th in the country now. But there's still a lot of room for improvement. If you had to say, what does the NHC most want the Congress to do to strengthen the housing market?
Well, I think the first thing we want them to understand is that housing is the key to the economic recovery, and that too much of the focus has been immediately on job creation. We sort of forgot about how important housing was. I think what we really want them to do first is to pass the Project Rebuild bill, which I think would be the biggest opportunity to really provide resources for folks to continue the kind of community recovery, getting people back in homes, getting homes repaired, and provide a lot of economic stimulus for communities that housing can provide when there's adequate resources. I think the second thing is we really want them to look at what's the future of housing financing and what does FHFA need to do, the government group that oversees Fannie and Freddie, to make sure that principal reduction can happen and that we can do a much better job of really getting people right-sized in their loans.
What do you want Nevadans struggling with housing concerns watching and listening today? What do you want them to take away from today's show?
One is to make sure that they go to get help in the right sources. I mentioned, looking for a HUD-approved housing counselor. There's also a scam hotline that they can look at, which is at loanscamalert.org. It's part of NeighborWorks, which is a national intermediary, to make sure that there's a lot of folks offering assistance out there and don't be taken advantage of.
Okay.
If you're a veteran, there's special programs particularly for you, and make sure that you identify yourself as a veteran.
Thanks so much for all this information today. I know it's going to help a lot of people, and thanks for being here. Hope to see you again. That does wrap up today's Eye on Washington, but we're always here for you, providing all the top federal news that Nevadans need to know. Just visit our website, joycecommunications.com, where you can subscribe to our Nevada's Washington Watch newsletter. Be sure to like us on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter, and check out our poll offerings and more federal issues that impact Nevadan while you're on our site. Thanks for joining us on Eye on Washington today. I'm Marilee Joyce in Washington. Have a good day.